All right. We're here with a grand finale of our art history lecture. This kind of we're going to look at Dutch Calvinism or Dutch Realism. I do want to point out there's an influence of Calvinism and Dutch culture on the Baroque era. This, very similar to the French Classicism, is one component of Baroque art overall. Sometimes people will put Rubens here. Totally cool. I love this piece that I've sharing here. It's just a kind of a mundane piece. And really, we're going to talk about how that all fits. But we just see a flower bouquet, which, little side note, the tulip flowers becomes so important to them. All right. So what is Dutch realism? Dutch realism, art of the Dutch Golden Age, really very important. This was used to really demonstrate their wealth. I want to point out Calvinism. It opposed any religious iconography. Therefore, realism will be about much more secular. There is no religious story. They're not using religion to tell the story. They would consider what the French classicists did. They would feel like that was sinful. Because remember, I pointed out they used Christian stories to tell a different story, right? Dutch realism is really, the Dutch artists are like, wait a minute, we're Calvinists, we're part of the elect, we're not allowed to use idols, so we're getting rid of all that stuff. So it's much more secular. It reflected the wealth and possessions of the age. Still lifes illustrate food, possession, and wealth. And here we see just an example of a still life. Here's a still life where we see, this very extremely expensive meal. And the whole point here was to demonstrate, put this up here, is to say, hey, I'm wealthy enough to have a feast, right? And they're also going to use landscapes and seascapes that are basically in vogue. But once again, because they're Calvinist, the Dutch will not utilize any religious imagery. It's all about secular. It's all about wealth. It's all about their possessions. I've already told you about Rembrandt. Rembrandt's considered the greatest artist of the age, at least of the Dutch era. And look at this piece. I really love this. We're going to find out a little bit later in our next unit about how anatomy became all the rave. People were learning about the human body. And here's a perfect example of kind of an autopsy that's studying. They're attempting to study the nerves of the hand. They had no idea what nerves were. And here, Dr. Nikolai Toop is teaching his students about the nerves of the arm. So these guys are all going to be doctors and pieces, and we just see that. And again, look at it. I mean, clearly that body is dead, right? That he does a great job at demonstrating the life versus death in this piece. This is the greatest piece maybe he did, Rembrandt, The Night Watch. Such a wonderful piece. Years ago, I was never really totally excited about this piece. I thought it was kind of boring until I went to Amsterdam. And when I went to Amsterdam, I learned so much about this piece. Not going to delve into that. But again, here we see the light here. This is really not a person that's existing there in real life. It's more about this concept of hope. Here's these very wealthy men that are going out to help guide. And again, that's Rembrandt's The Night Watch. So everybody got that? You probably have the cloth syndicate in your power map. Clearly, you should know that one as well. Now, Jean Vermeer, he's another one. I'm not sure why Spilogro kind of ignores him. Jean Vermeer is, again, considered a very famous painter. Most people would just assume that you know this. When you're an adult, you most likely would just assume you know the girl with the pearl earring. This was painted in 1642. And you just see this ginormous pearl, once again, representing the wealth of the family. And again, it's a lovely piece. But it's, I won't fool you. I do find it kind of dull. And Judith Leister. I love some Judith Leister. Here's her self-portrait, just a component of that. I just want to emphasize her. Again, she, along with Artemisia Gentileschi, are the first professional female artists, and she really paints these lively, these happiness, this joyous, and she really captures what she would consider the joy. But that's what Dutch realism. And if you guys do decide to research Dutch realism, for me, it's a dull, it's a mundane, it's an ordinary painting style that really adds the wealth. But that's what we got. So with this, let's conclude. Mannerism, we looked at mannerism. Remember, that's all about the chaos of the age. El Greco is such a wonderful illustrator of that chaos, right? Mannerism, chaos. It bridges us from the Renaissance to the Baroque era. The other three eras are all considered to be under one umbrella of the Baroque era of the 17th century art. When the one we looked at, the Catholic, the Italian and Spanish Baroque that we looked at, is really about the emotions and theatrics of Catholicism. We saw that with the Bernini's David. We saw that with Bernini's Saint Teresa. We see this with Rubens' art as well. Then we shifted how the French Baroque rejected the emotion of the age and really embraced that classical balance. And again, I emphasize the impact and the influence of the world machine. And again, you'll see that a little bit later. And we talk about how the Dutch rejected all religious tenets and only embraced its Calvinist roots. Therefore, it was about the wealth and prestige, the food, the culture, the people's lives, and even some stuff that I didn't show you with landscapes. Each genre of art tells a different story of the era that it reflects, and I hope you're able to see that. Again, this is the first step of a couple things that we're going to be doing with art history. So that's we go.